Hello.
It's so today we have this. First of all, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Cool. Because sometimes this is not true. Okay, then I received some presentations. It's a little bit messy because someone sent just the presentation, someone sent just the saying, then sometimes presentations are not named, so I have to name them. And also sometimes are sent to an email address, sometimes another one. But I hope that I managed to have all. So the first one you can see is Bulgakov. Is he there?
He's from another group, actually. He's from the first one.
And Dmitry Zhukov.
Zhukov, yes, I'm here. I should demonstrate the presentation.
So, how is this your name?
Zhukov, Dmitry.
Zhukov. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult for me.
It's okay. So, what shall I do? I should demonstrate the presentation, yeah?
No, demonstrate, show.
Could you see it? Yeah, you could. My topic is the inflation rate swap, and
Dmitry,
yeah.
If you can, you see at the bottom there is exactly good.
Yeah. First of all, I should say that inflation is a risk which long-term investors meet, and it's a problem, and this problem should be decided, should be solved. And the solution is the inflation rate swap. When inflation hits, both sides, companies, households, get affected. Therefore, one needs a strong predictor which helps to foresee these coming changes. And it's inflation swap. Inflation swap is a contract which used to transfer the inflation risk, inflation changes to fixed cash flows, fixed coupon payments. And it's used to reduce risk or to hedge risk. So that's why hedging works like insurance against unpredictable inflation changes and unpredictable great losses. In simple words, investors fearing the future increase in the inflation and ask for help for another side, and they go into inflation rate swap. So the features of this derivative is as follows. Flows and payments made between two counterparties. Almost it's a company, a firm, and the side is a bank or another financial organization. The second point is the floating rate linked to an inflation swap to a fixed rate coupon, as I said before. The third one is that the ratio of assets to liabilities remains unaffected, And the fourth, the last but not least, is that inflation swap helps to predict inflation rates. What I mean here is that usually inflation swaps shows agents their predictions how the inflation will change, and usually this prediction works, and it helps to see what the changes will be with the inflation. So of course the derivative can't be without a risk, and the risk is that both sides, a receiver and a payer of the coupon, meet long-lasting fluctuations in inflation rate. It means that it's difficult to predict the inflation changes over the long period of time, for example, for 15, 20 years and so on. Inflation rate swap works good in the short period, in 1 year, in 5 years, but in the long period, it has a very big variation in the inflation fluctuations. So that's the problem, and that's the risk for the agents. And at the end of my speech, I'd like to present to show an example of the working of the inflation swap. Imagine that there is a company which gets its revenue, its utility depends on the inflation, and the company wants to fix its revenue, wants the changes to be constant. So the company go into an inflation swap with bank B, and this scheme is as follows. A company pays inflation index to bank, and bank pays back fixed rate coupon. So the company solved the problem of the unpredictable changes in inflation, and the bank helps the company to do this. So that's all, I think. Maybe you have questions.
I do have a question. Why there are two parties here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just an example. It could be between two banks, it could be between two companies, and so on. The example that you made is not the only example.
Yeah, of course. It's just
one of them. Okay. So, and why one party should agree to we said that the idea is to switch from something that is not certain to something that is uncertain, and this is sorry, just a second, I need to switch to the phone. So why a person would enter, or a company, whatever, would enter in this kind of contract? Why let's say that someone wants to swap a fixed rate against a variable rate, why I should accept it?
Okay, I think that the party which pays a fixed rate coupon do it because of its expectations. I think it thinks that the inflation will goes up, and that's why it gets more profit by paying a fixed rate coupon and getting an inflation index by this difference between them. I think so.
But let's say that I need to speak. So Dimitri, please. No, I will do this. Let's say that there are two parties again that want to swap, and then there is one party that believes that it's better to get fixed rate. No? Why the other party should accept the risk to have a variable rate?
I think it's the reason why companies go into a swap, because they want to fix their cash flows, their changes, and that's why the coupon is fixed and not variable.
Yeah, we understand that.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Could you repeat one more time?
Yeah, I try to read. One party wants to get a fixed cash flow, correct?
Yeah.
But why the other party? Because there are two parties here. One is getting the fixed cash flow, the other one gets the variable cash flow. There are two exchange of cash flows, no?
Yeah.
Why the other party is available to get a variable cash flow? Because that is risky, no?
Yeah, it is. Frankly, I don't know why. I think there are some reasons, and the risk can be. I think maybe there is something like risk premium or something like that that minimize the risk and allows the company which gets a variable cash flow to not to lost all the money.
Ruslan, do you have an idea?
Actually, no, I don't think so.
Alina?
I don't know.
Joseph?
As well, I don't know.
Otabek?
I cannot answer this question.
Sorry?
I didn't get the question.
There are two parties regarding inflation rate swap. One is getting variable cash flow, and the other one is getting fixed cash flow. Why the party that gets variable cash flow, that has the risk, is willing to enter in this deal, in this transaction, in this contract?
Maybe maybe the ones that suggest fixed rates are paid for this risk. I mean, the counterparty pays for this fixed rate risk coverage. I don't know, probably like this.
Kirill?
No, I have no idea.
Nick?
I can agree with Atabek and with Dmitry. So I guess it's the same situation as with the insurance market. So one agent stabilizes and pays for his risks to another party. And in Dmitry's example, this party who is getting paid for some risk premium, it's a bank, and bank is a huge agent and probably a risk neutral, so bank can afford this risk, unlike the company.
Well, no, the bank cannot afford the risk unless the risk is well paid. And then as is like any other risk, is like as you mentioned before, for insurance, because the party that gets the fixed cash flow knows how much has to pay every time, no? You know, for example, every quarter. But then the other party doesn't know it. So what has to do? Has to build scenarios, has to evaluate what is more likely and what is less likely, and so on. So in this way, can assess how much is this risk, and then has to can decide what is the price of this risk. And then, like everything else, there is a price. And what is the price in this case? What is the price in this case?
Maybe the difference between the calculated inflation rate, well, stable one, and the actual required by the agent.
The interest that one has to pay as a fixed rate, and then the inflation that the other one has to pay. So that is the price. And then, like everything else, when there is a price, then there is demand and offer. And depending on the preference, individual preference, then there are people, companies, institutions, whatever, that are willing to buy, to enter in this deal from the buyer side, and there are people, companies, and so on, that want to enter in this deal from the seller side. It's clear this?
Yes, it is.
So this is the price is made thanks to the equilibrium between the demand and offer. Okay, so Dimitri, thank you for this presentation. Anton is here?
Yeah, it's me. Give me a second. Is it seen?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about interest rate swap. There are many factors that provide influence on market risk, such as interest rate, currency rate, inflation, and others. These reasons are taken into account by investors, especially those who invest in long term, because interest rate changes not often by central bank, and inflation is usually noticeable in long time horizon. For example, pension funds and insurance, as these factors determine present value of their liabilities. I'm going to discuss in more detail sense of the derivative to reduce risk from interest rate. It is interest rate swap, IRS, and give an example of its application. Interest rate swap occurs when two parties exchange future interest payments based on a specified principal amount. The main function of interest rate swap is to hedge risk and to make future payments not so large or even less relatively to present, but it also may be used for speculations. Hedging risk with IRS is achieved by using fixed and float or variable interest rates. The latter is based on interbank offered rate in the appropriate currency. For example, LIBOR in pounds or MOS Prime in rubles in Russian. In terms of most common type of IRS, fixed to floating, one company will make payments to the counterparty based on an initially agreed fixed rate of interest to receive back payments based on a floating interest rate. Each of these series of payments is termed a lag. Interest rate swaps may be either collateralized or uncollateralized. Collateralized interest rate swaps expose parties to collateral risks. Type of posted collateral that is permitted can become more or less expensive due to external market movements. On the other hand, uncollateralized interest rate swaps expose the trading counterparties to funding risks and credit risks. Funding risks, for example, occur because the value of the swap might deviate to become so negative that it is unaffordable and cannot be funded. There are several types of interest rate swaps. The first is fixed to fixed. It has no variable interest rate, and it is used, for example, when payments and earnings come in different currencies, so actions to avoid volatility in currency rate make sense. Second is fixed to floating. It involves one company receiving a fixed rate and paying a floating rate since it believes that the floating rate will generate better cash flow. Also, it is a floating to fixed as a previous one, but vice versa. And the last type is floating to floating. This type of interest rate swap is good to hedge risk of narrowing or expansion of spread between two rates. Let's look at example. Consider IRS floating to fixed, where party A has a loan to a third party with variable rate LIBOR plus 1.50%. At the same time, party B pays to its third party with fixed interest rate 8.50%. Party A decides to undertake paying fixed payments with rate 8.65% in favor of party B in exchange for interest payments with rate LIBOR plus 0.70%. So now party A has a fixed interest rate and B has a floating rate. Because if interest rate rise, then A will be in worse situation. So it decided to have a fixed rate. In the result, net rate to pay of party A is 9.45%, and net rate to pay of party B is LIBOR plus 0.55%. Besides, usually parties do not enter into swap agreement directly with each other, but conclude separate swaps using an intermediary, a bank, that charges a spread on interest payments as a fee for services. And this fee is equally divided between two parties. In this example, the fee is 0.30%, and each party has to pay additional 0.15%. That's all.
Well, your microphone is off.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
switched off the microphone because someone asked me to do it before. So that's fine. And then, as we said before, why one party is entering in a variable swap? We said it before, no?
Because it believes that interest rate will become less in the future, so it's a profitable decision for this party to change its fixed rate to float rate.
Yeah, this is a possibility. And then also because we said at the end, it's a matter of price, no? So regarding LIBOR, is not anymore used as, and I send you in the chat an article. And the problem was that some banks organized a way to cheat on this interest rate. So that's why and this was possible because technically it was possible to cheat. So that's why it's not anymore used. This is just for your information. Okay. So in the chat, you have an article that tells you about that, the scandal. Okay.
Okay.
So that's fine.
Should I close the demonstration?
Yeah, you can close it. Yeah, Oleg is not here, correct? He is the other group, belongs to the other group, correct? Karayev, okay, or Oleg.
He's from another group.
Yes, and so then Valeria Pokrovskaya.
Yeah, it's me. Do you hear me?
Yes, this is the first time that I see you.
Just a second. Do you see the presentation slides?
Yes.
Okay. Today I would like to tell you about counterparty risk in the derivative market. It's a common knowledge that a derivative is a contract between parties based on the value of the underlying asset. Hence, there is a possibility that one of the parties may not meet its obligations under the contract. This situation is called counterparty risk, which is part of the credit risk. There are some specificities for characteristics of the counterparty risk. The counterparty risk is higher on the less regulated markets, such as over-the-counter markets, because there is no centralized entity to oversee the execution of transactions. Also, it's worth to note that counterparty risk creates other financial risks such as operational risk and liquidity risk. Furthermore, any change in the derivative market can influence on the stability of the financial market, because if one party fails to fulfill its obligations, it's most likely that the other dependent party will also fail in meeting its obligations. Therefore, this risk creates a chain of defaults due to the dependence of counterparties. So I would like to show an example where counterparty risk had a detrimental effect on the financial market. One of the causes of the global financial crisis was defaults on swap contracts. The biggest insurance organization, American International Group, sold a significant number of credit default swaps contracts as insurance against counterparty risk. AG believed that defaults would be insignificant. However, due to the crisis, many obligations on the bonds were defaulted. Hence, AG needed to pay out to counterparties, but because of the chain reaction, debts accumulated due to non-payment to the parties of CDS. As a result of which it ended up owing a huge amount of money. So the US government was forced to come to the aid of AG company because it's too big to fail. As the collapse of the world's largest insurance company could even lead to the collapse of the global financial system. So it led to understand some measures of credit and counterparty risk, its notional of contract, current market to market, expected exposure and potential future exposure are the main measures of counterparty risk. Notional of contracts estimates the size of the underlying asset, which is calculated as the multiplication of the contract size and market price. The current market-to-market measures the current counterparty risk and may fluctuate over time. As for exposure metrics, expected exposure and potential future exposure are used. First one is measure the expected market value of the derivative attributable to the future target date. Potential future exposure uses market value on future target date on a certain confidence level. In other words, it's the probability of how much the losses of one party will amount to if the other defaults. It's also similar to the value at risk measure. I also wanted to mention several ways to manage counterparty risk. First one is netting. It means combining several obligations to obtain the net amount of the obligation. The main purpose of this is to offset the debts of parties to each other. In other words, if counterparty defaulted, then the other party can recover its losses with the money they are owed. And additionally, as a third party, a centralized entity may be involved, which takes the credit risk of the counterparty. Such an organization is called a central counterparty clearing. Also, CCP through the netting compensates the transaction among counterparties and reduce the settlement risk. To sum up, counterparty credit risk gained its popularity after the global financial crisis, which is why it has become widely studied. The problem is that counterparty risk may form a chain of defaults and can affect the entire financial structure. Therefore, the study of risk assessment measures and its regulation is an important issue that worries many investors. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wants to ask a question to Valeria? Okay, no one. From my side, Valeria, it's a pleasure to see you after, I don't know, more than a month that we started this class. And I would like to ask you a question. What is the difference between counterparty and credit risk?
As I understand, counterparty risk is just a part of credit risk. So I think it should have the same meaning.
No. Kibir? Otabek?
What is the difference between counterparty and what type of risk?
Credit risk.
I don't know.
Vladislav? Okay, so credit risk is when the borrower is not able or completely or partially to meet his obligation. Counterparty risk is the subject, is the risk of the subject that is not able to deliver. Let's say that there is a security. This security is issued by Gazprom. And then I buy this security through a bank. So who is the issuer of this security? A bond, for example. Valeria, who is the issuer we said?
Could you repeat, please?
Yes. You want to buy a bond from issued by Gazprom. Okay? Can you go directly to Gazprom to buy it? Can you go to the office of Gazprom to buy this security, this bond?
I'm not fully understand because I can't hear you very well. So
Valeria, can you hear me?
yes.
We are talking about a security, a bond issued by Gazprom. You want to buy it. Can you understand? It's clear what I mean? Okay. You want to buy the security, this bond. Can you go directly to Gazprom to buy it?
Mm. Mm.
Valeria, yes or no?
Yes.
You go directly to Gazprom. So, for example, you know, you go to, where is it, Gazprom? It's, in St. Petersburg, you go to the office of Gazprom and you say, I want to buy a bond from you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that?
Sorry.
Do you go directly to St. Petersburg to the head office of Gazprom and you buy the security, the bond?
Mm-hmm.
Valeria, is yes or no? Is no?
I think no.
Okay. You have to go somewhere else. For example, you can buy from the stock market. Who said that? Dimitri. Or you can buy from someone else. Valeria, it's clear?
Yes.
Okay. So if you buy this security from Kirill, who has to give you this security?
Mm.
Valeria, can you understand what I say?
Could you repeat, please?
You buy a bond, Gazprom bond from Kirill.
Mm-hmm.
So who has to give you this security?
From another from another party.
Kirill. Who is going to deliver the security to Valeria?
So in this situation, I transfer the stock of the Gazprom to Valeria.
Exactly. So, Valeria, the counterparty is Kirill,
Mm-hmm.
and the credit is Gazprom.
Mm-hmm.
You have a risk, credit risk regarding Gazprom, and the counterparty risk
From the Kirill.
regarding Kirill, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because Kirill may default.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the first thing, first comment. Second comment. To slide number 6. Can you show the slide?
Mm-hmm. Which one?
6, page 6. What is the difference between expected value and average?
And what? An average?
Yes, what is the difference?
I think that it's the same.
It's not. Ruslan?
Can you repeat the question, please? The difference between what and what?
Between expected value and average.
So, give me a minute, please. Like the expected value, it's somewhat like a guess for a statistic value, while the average, it's like an actual value, the average value.
Well, it's not a guess. It's not right to say that it's a guess, but it's something about a random variable, no?
Yeah, about the data,
Well,
what data set, yeah.
Is your expectation about a random variable.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way in which you can compute it is like the average, maybe, depending, because you can do also the conditioning. But there are two different things. One is the expectation, and another one is just the meaning of something that is it's data, it's something that happened. Okay, so Valeria, did you get my comments? But you cannot hear me.
Yes.
Good. So next one.
I guess it should be me.
I see Ruslan Roshku.
No? Okay.
Yeah, it's me. Give me a minute, please. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
So I'll talk about the function of an OTC derivatives CCP. So I will firstly disclose what is central counterparty or CCP itself, then explain the difference between over-the-counter or OTC derivatives and listed or exchange-traded derivatives. And finally, I'll go through functions of an OTC derivatives CCP. So to make sure that we are on the same page, I will give the definition of central counterparty. So it fulfills the function of central clearing between buyers and sellers of security, but beyond that, it also acts as a guarantor for transactions. So what are over-the-counter derivatives? They are private financial contracts traded between two or more counterparties. On the contrary, listed derivatives are traded on exchanges and are more standardized contracts in which the underlying assets, the number of underlying assets, and settlements are determined by the exchange, and they are subject to stricter regulation. And now I'll talk about the functions. So one of the main functions of the CCP is a fulfillment of credit risk management techniques such as netting, collateralization, and also procedures to mitigate settlement risk, replacement cost risk, and other risk management mechanisms. CCP is its capacity is a clearinghouse. The CCP positions itself between buyer and seller immediately after a transaction has been concluded. That is, a seller clears his business with the CCP, which at the same time clears with the original buyer. So there is no direct contractual relation between buyer and seller. And in its capacity as a grantor, CCP also protects against the risk of default by one of the trading parties. It then honors the trade settlement obligations, and the whole process is referred to as clearing. So, in other words, clearing is the process of reconciling purchases and sales of various options, futures, and securities, and the direct transfer of funds from one financial institution to another. CCP also should monitor counterparties' creditworthiness, determine collateral requirements, and monitor securities posted as collateral, as well as monitor counterparties for compliance with the terms of a contract, in particular credit events defined under the contract. And the last thing is that CCP is in charge for crisis management and user default administration. The CCP charges initial margin and variation margin to the contribution margins. In case of clearing members' default, the CCP takes responsibility for closing out the defaulter's trade, and the margin posted at the CCP by the defaulter is available to meet the costs of the closeout. So to conclude, OTC derivative CCP of the clearinghouse is a financial institution that fulfills several key functions such as credit risk management, transaction granting, market monitoring, and crisis management, and user default administration. That is all.
Ruslan,
Yep.
in light of what we said,
What?
in light of what we said before to Valeria, which kind of credit risk manages the CCP?
Can you repeat what kind of credit risk manages the CCP?
Yes.
Like the risk between two counterparties that it interacts with.
Yeah, but I don't get it. So we said something about credit risk and counterparty risk. Now we talk about credit risk because this is what you said here, correct? So which kind of management the CCP does in relation to credit risk?
So it manages the risk that happens in the process of exchange between counterparties A and counterparties B. So how CCP does that? It is able to make these transactions not between only two persons, like the counterparties, but with the huge amount of them, and like that, it can lower the risk for the counterparties.
Ruslan, you said several words, but I don't understand them. Let me ask again the question. What is credit risk?
Credit risk Can you just like maybe I don't know. I mean, so credit risk. It's like the possibility of loss of money as a result of like so for example counterparty B is a borrower, so credit risk is the possibility of loss from a borrower's failure to repay a derivative due to some circumstances, like yeah.
Well, not a
Failure.
derivative.
What?
The borrower, then we talk about not derivative. We talk about actual money, no? So rubles.
Money loan?
Money.
Okay. So yeah. Then it's just borrower failure to repay a loan based on the
Okay,
the
so
obligation.
now we clarified what is credit risk and what the CCP has to do regarding credit risk.
It has it asks to give a collateral
For what?
to make sure that there will be no failure to repay the loan.
Ruslan, you have to review this thing.
Can you repeat?
Can you get what I said?
Can I get what I said?
No. My question is, did you get what I said, my comment?
So you just asked me how CCP.
Yes, you have to review this concept. Credit risk management related to the CCP. Sorry, CCP. Yes? It's not
Exactly.
what you want to manage. So you have to review this concept and then you write something and then later, today, tomorrow, when you have time, and then you tell me, explain what you mean here, because I don't understand. Okay, from my side, it's all. Is anyone willing to ask any question to Ruslan?
No questions so far.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Joseph dying?
Yes, so let me share the screen. Just a second. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
So today I want to tell you about the requirements for successful derivatives market. And this topic, from my perspective, this topic is very important because those requirements influence the quality of the market, the desire of people to participate in a trading market. And to broach this subject, I will focus on the following subtopics as underlying market, structure of owners, government regulation, clearinghouse, and margining. First of all, when we talk about successful derivatives market, there should be a good functioning underlying market. What includes this concept?
Joseph, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. Could you please show the full screen?
Full screen, yes.
Should be one. Maybe it's Control L. Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
It includes underlying market concept. It includes 4 general components such as liquidity, market structures, legal and compliance surroundings, and customer acceptance. The first one is the ease with liquidity, is the ease with which an asset or security can be converted into ready cash without affecting its market price. Proper market structures, we understand under this an economic environment where a business operates and describes how competitive the industry is, also plays a big role in organizing successful derivatives market. The legal compliance and surroundings and customer acceptance are also exception, because both these components impact as the first regulates the market, and by this the customers trust or do not trust to the market more. Another subtopic that should be discussed is the structure of owners. On the derivatives market, there are following participants: hedgers, speculators, arbitrageurs, and margin traders. The main questions that comes nowadays: who should own derivatives market, and how should the ownership be structured? There are in general two types of ownership. The first one is combined ownership. In this type of ownership, same infrastructure can be used, and there are also margining advantages in case when clearinghouse for derivatives in case when clearinghouse for derivatives is at the same time also settlement systems for stocks and bonds. The second type is separate ownership, and the advantages in this case are facilitation in outsourcing of activities of other clearinghouses, and of course independence in choosing products. Another important moment is government regulation. In the ideal world, both underlying and derivative market should be covered with regulation. The main thing is that regulation should include a right and obligation for the market participants. Unfortunately, there are nowadays not so many countries that have regulation in this field, but there are some examples that do have the United States and the European Union. In the US, where was Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform and consumer protection are included. After this, some authorities, such as the Commodity Futures Trading Commission in the United States, appeared. In the European Union, 2 years later, in 2012, appeared European Market Infrastructure Regulation. So the European Securities and Authority, the European Securities and Market Authority, exercises control on derivatives market. To continue, I should mention clearinghouse. What is it? It is an intermediary between buyers and sellers of financial instruments, an agency or separate corporation of futures exchange that is responsible for settling trading accounts, clearing trades, collecting and maintaining margin money. There are two approaches to clearinghouse: vertical and horizontal. The advantage of horizontal approach is the flexibility for clearinghouse to run its business and also to clear business from other exchanges. The drawback on the other side is that it is a separate profit-making entity, and its profits do not accrue to the exchange. Vertical approach consists of control of the pricing and income to the exchange. One big advantage in this is that end-to-end process cannot be interrupted. And the last subtopic is margining, that includes vertical margin, initial margins, long options, and covered short options. In variation margins, the clearinghouse guarantees that all trades and in initial margin, the clearinghouse is guaranteed to all the traders, and it is necessary to assure smooth and prompt settling of accounts. In initial margins, former client can be a little bit relaxed, and in this, due to the fact that the clearinghouse should have power to automatically collect the corresponding bank any margin due. In case of long options, there is no margin is necessary unless the options are future style, and the covered short options and in most markets, investors that sell covered short options against stocks in their portfolios can pledge their stock position as security, and it is a very good solution for the client. So to conclude, these five subtopics, both play a huge role in organizing successful derivatives market. That's all. And if you have questions, I will answer to it.
Yeah, I have two questions. One, what is the meaning of clearing?
The meaning, the meaning of clearing or clearing house?
No, clearing.
To clear something, if we have something and
well, we talk about not clearing in the common language, but we talk about finance. No, yeah. we are dealing with derivatives. So what we mean when we say clearing, and we are in a bank?
The settlement of account or exchange of financial instrument.
No, because settlement is another thing. We talk about clearing. No, I don't know.
So no, I don't have an idea.
So Joseph, when you talk about things, your presentation was good, but when you talk about something, make sure that you know what you talk about.
Yeah, I can explain you what is clearing house, but the clearing itself.
Before the house, the clearing. What is the clearing? The clearing house is the place, the institution where the clearing is done, is performed. But what is the clearing? What do you mean by clearing?
One more time, I didn't hear the last sentence.
Sorry. The clearing house is the institution where the clearing is performed, is executed. Okay? Yes?
Let me turn off my micro because maybe I cannot get, I do not hear because of this.
Should I use the microphone? Joseph?
Now I hear you, but some words I cannot get it.
Only let me write here. Okay.
Okay. So, for example, in the bank, this is the process of settling transactions between somebody, between two correspondents.
Yeah, what do you mean?
By what? By the process of settling transactions when we have two clear. So maybe what we do from the time the commitment is made and till the time this transaction it is settled.
But it is not the time, it is the action
The
that you have to perform in order to make sure that there is the settlement is executed. So there are several actions that you have to perform in order to get the transaction executed. It's clear, Joseph? So for example, just to make an example, when you have to clear a trade, then you need to know who is the seller, who is the buyer, for example. You need to know whether the buyer has the money and the seller has the security. Joseph?
Yes, yeah, I get it.
And then you have to check the amount of money and the amount of the number of securities and so on. So all this process is the clearing. You have to clarify all the required what is it? The required tasks in order to get the trade executed. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then sorry, can you show again your presentation?
Yeah. The last slide, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Enlarge it, please. Show it completely. Full view, please.
What?
Full view.
Full view? Just a second.
Control L. Okay, there you talk about long options, no?
Yes.
And what do you say about long options?
What is long options?
Yes. When you are long, what do you say?
Can you repeat the question?
When you are long with options, so for example, you are long call or long put, what happens? You mentioned
what
in your presentation.
One more time, may turn off the presentation because I cannot hear you well.
Okay. Long options, okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Why you say there is no problem with the long options?
Why I say that there is no problem with the long options?
Yeah, you say for long options, no margin is necessary. Why you say that?
Because long-term options, they offer low capital outlay when we compare it to short-term options.
Arina?
Can you repeat this?
Why there is no problem with the long options? Why Joseph is right when he says that for long options, no margin is necessary.
I can't answer.
May I guess I have another idea.
Yes, go ahead.
Because when we have a long-term option, we have less risk. So
It's better. This is true. But say it better, because in this way it's not
we
exactly.
limit our possibility to lose something in long-term options. So no margin is necessary.
Exactly. So your loss is limited. Instead, if you sell the option, is the opposite. You may have infinitive loss. It's clear?
Yes.
So that's why what you said is right. But when you write things, try to understand why what you say is correct, or try to understand the meaning of what you do or what you write or what you think.
Okay.
Yes, this is the thing.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we have still 10 minutes, no? Let's do
18 minutes.
how many?
18? Yeah, 18 minutes.
18.
I think
No,
we
no.
have 8 minutes.
8
8
actually.
minutes, sorry.
8.
Sorry, yeah, it's me.
Okay, next one that I have is Karaev Oleg.
He's not from our group.
Okay, cool. Kirill Ergin
Yes. No.
He's not from our group.
Kirill.
is the other one. And then Leonid.
He's also from another group.
Okay. Makova or Makova.
She's also.
Very good. So Maxim Tseva.
She too.
Okay, good. So Miroshi.
I'm here.
Miroshi.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Piotr, is this first time that I see you? Okay.
Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, margins with the CPPs. The financial crisis of 2008 and 2009 increased the focus on financial resources that we needed to secure the performance of various counterparties to financial transactions or contracts. Direct bilateral counterparties to transactions between dealers and between dealers and users must now exchange collateral in the form of collateral obligations, also known as margin. The central counterparty margin, or CCP, framework could have a huge impact on market participations and the broader functioning of the entire financial system. The potential impact on financial stability is the heart of supervisory concerns, especially with the rise of centralized clearing in the post-crisis years. In addition, the margin charged by a CCP is the first level of financial resources held by the CCP to cover counterparty credit risk. So it is critical that the CCP margin system be efficient. Regulatory reform since the financial crisis have made the use of CCPs for clearing over-the-counter derivatives a mandatory requirement whenever possible. The mandate, as well as the wider use of listed derivatives in general, has led to additional scrutiny of the margin setting methodologies used by CCPs. The CCP processing cycle is daily. The purpose of the cycle is to recalculate and request all required margins amounts and calculate net cash amounts at least once a day. A CCP bears all the counterparty credit risk of the trades it clears and therefore is exposed to high risk. To mitigate this risk, various means of protection are used, the most important of which is margin. Margin is usually recalculated daily, and participants have a very short period to satisfy the margin requirement. The intention to perform central clearing for an OTC derivatives is generally agreed between the two parties during the commercial negotiations. The fact that the CCP is balanced means that any variation margin movement passes through the CCP whenever a party loses and therefore has to post more variation margin at the clearing house. There is corresponding gain to receive it. Therefore, or throughout the clearing system, a CCP's variation margin requirements do not result in a net change in liquidity. There are three types of margins that CCP collects from participants. Initial margin, which is intended to cover a CCP's potential future exposure to participant positions if the participant defaults. Initial margin is designed to cover adverse price movements within a specified amount known as confidence interval over the period of time that CCP expects it will need to hedge its exposure to the amount on the defaulting participant position. This period is known as the closing period or risk margin period. Initial margin is usually estimated from special models. Variation margin, which cover changes in the value of participant position as a result of actual changes in market prices. Variation margins prevents accumulation of current risks. It is generally charged at least daily to participants with losses at market prices on their position and is usually paid out to participants with profits. Additional margin, which is charged to cover risks that are not necessarily accounted for in CCP's initial margin model. For instance, CCP may charge additional margin to account for the risk of increased bid-ask spread during periods of market stress, or the risk that liquid or highly concentrated portfolios may take longer to close than expected. That's all.
So from my side, that's fine. You said correctly the process and so on. Where did you find this? Because I don't see reference here.
I looked some articles about CCP margins.
So what you have to do then is to add reference to the presentation.
Repeat, please.
Let me see this. Because I can't see the it's in under, no, you don't have a reference. I don't see reference here. So please modify your presentation and your essay and add the references.
Okay.
So I think that for today that's all, no? we cannot do anything else. So let's.
Giuseppe, yeah, excuse me. Can I ask you some questions when everyone leaves?
Okay.
Huh? Yes.
Of course,
Yes. Thank you.
And are we going to continue this kind of lesson next time? I mean,
well, next time, no, the lesson. This is not a lesson. In reality, this should be the what is it? The seminar, no? The lesson would be on what we said already. The presentation that I sent you. So, for example, the 11th, we will have the lecture, no?
so we will have this kind of lesson on Thursday, right?
Correct.
Next Thursday, after a week.
In a week, correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have also a question. When will we know the results of our presentation and essays?
Well, when we finish this process, so if we finish next time, that would be, we said, the 13th, no? By the 15th, you should get it.
Okay.
Additional questions? Okay, good. So, who was?
Thank you. Goodbye.
Nice afternoon, evening, whatever.